August 23, 2025, one of the darkest days in the Emmanuel Haro case. What began as the frantic search for a missing 7-month-old baby has now spiraled into a horrifying revelation. Not one, but 2 deaths, 2 lives lost in the same house. A pattern of unspeakable tragedy, one that no one could have ever imagined. A pattern that refuses to stay buried, demanding to be uncovered, piece by agonizing piece. Emmanuel Haro, his tiny body still missing, presumed dead, and yet the search continues. But with every turn, new details have emerged, casting a dark shadow over what was once a search for a lost child. A chilling connection has come to light, one that ties Emmanuel's death to another tragedy that occurred in the same house years before. A death that went unanswered, but now holds a horrifying significance. Jake Haro's own brother, Hector Haro, found dead in that very home, the same home where Emmanuel's life was tragically, and perhaps suspiciously, cut short. Rebecca Haro, the mother of 7-month-old Emmanuel, reported her son missing from a parking lot in Yukipa. The story she told was filled with horror and disbelief. As she was changing her baby's diaper, a stranger supposedly attacked her, knocking her unconscious before fleeing with her child. A terrifying scenario, one that any mother would dread. But as authorities began their investigation, things didn't add up. The evidence told a different story, one filled with inconsistencies and questions that Rebecca could not or would not answer. And then, the most chilling discovery came to light: blood-soaked carpets in the Haro home. The kind of evidence that pointed to something far more sinister than a kidnapping. The baby was never found. But what was found was even more disturbing. 2 parents, Jake and Rebecca, were arrested just days later, not for kidnapping, but for murder. Yet, that wasn't all. The deeper the detectives dug into the Haro family's history, the more unsettling details began to emerge. Among the many questions raised was the tragic death of Jake Haro's brother, Hector Haro. It wasn't just a distant tragedy, it was a tragedy that occurred in the very same house where little Emmanuel's life came to an end. On May 6, 2021, just 4 years before Emmanuel's disappearance, Hector Haro was found dead at 508 Ramona Street, the very address now tied to Emmanuel's death. Authorities quickly labeled Hector's death an overdose or possibly self-harm. But even then, whispers of foul play began to emerge, raising questions that were never fully answered. Despite mounting suspicions, the case was quietly closed, and no charges were filed. The family moved forward, quickly putting Hector's death behind them, launching a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for Hector's funeral. But why was Hector at Jake's house that night? Why was his death swept under the rug without a proper investigation? And most importantly, why was the cause of his death never fully confirmed? The eerie connection between these 2 deaths, Hector's mysterious passing and Emmanuel's horrifying end, begs the question: could there be more to these deaths than we were initially led to believe? Why were the answers to Hector's death never pursued with the same urgency? And now, as we look back at this pattern of tragedy, it seems undeniable. There's something deeply wrong with the Haro family home. 2 deaths, 1 house, a pattern. That screams for the truth to be uncovered. 2 deaths, 1 home, and a mystery that refuses to remain in the shadows. Was it merely a coincidence, or is there a dark, hidden truth that ties these 2 deaths together? A truth that could forever change the way we see this case. As investigators search for answers, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. Will we ever know what truly happened in that house? Is there more to Hector's death than we were told? And will the truth about Emmanuel's disappearance finally be uncovered? Only time will tell. August 23, 2025. A day that forever alters the course of the Emmanuel Haro case. What began as a frantic search for a missing 7-month-old baby has now spiraled into an even darker and more disturbing revelation: the disappearance of Emmanuel. Haro has unearthed a horrifying truth. 2 lives lost in the very same house, linked by an undeniable and terrifying pattern. Emmanuel Haro, his tiny body still missing, presumed dead. His parents, Jake and Rebecca, now arrested on charges of murder. But there is something far more chilling, something that could change everything. The Haro home, once a place for a family to live and thrive, now stands as the epicenter of unimaginable tragedy. In 2021, just 4 years earlier, another death occurred in that very same house. Jake Haro's own brother, Hector Haro, was found dead, another life lost under mysterious circumstances. But what's even more unsettling is the shocking connection between these 2 deaths, one after the other. A pattern that suggests something far darker than anyone could have ever anticipated. Let's rewind to August 14th, 2025, the day Rebecca Haro reported her 7-month-old son Emmanuel as missing from a parking lot in Yucaipa, California. The story she told authorities was filled with desperation and fear. As she was changing Emmanuel's diaper, a stranger supposedly attacked her, knocking her unconscious and stealing her baby. A terrifying tale, every mother's worst nightmare. But as investigators delved deeper into the story, things started to fall apart. Rebecca's account didn't hold up under scrutiny. And then, the most shocking discovery of all: blood-soaked carpets in the Haro home. This wasn't the scene of a kidnapping. This was the scene of a murder. Within days, the truth began to emerge. Jake and Rebecca Haro were arrested, not
a discussion on whether my nephew is special needs. He is late in development, but as far as we know, the doctors say that he's in great health. He's fine. He just has a lazy eye, and that made him more beautiful than anybody I knew, because I loved him so much. It didn't matter what he looked.
But for murder with malice aforethought. The same 2 parents who had once pleaded for their son's safe return now faced charges for his death. The community was left in shock. How could 2 parents, once desperate to find their son, now be accused of taking his life? And just when you thought the mystery couldn't get any darker, a chilling connection to a death that occurred years earlier started to surface. Jake's brother, Hector Haro, was found dead in the very same home just 4 years prior. On May 6, 2021, official reports called it an overdose, possibly self-harm. But whispers of foul play surrounded Hector's death. Why was his death never fully investigated? Why was the cause of his death left unclear? And why was Hector found in Jake's house when he didn't live there? Authorities quickly closed the case on Hector's death, but as new details have emerged, the questions only grow. The connection between Hector's death and Emmanuel's murder seems too eerie to ignore. Could it be a twisted coincidence, or is there something darker at play? Now let's turn back to the most recent developments in the Emmanuel Haro case. The blood-soaked carpets found in the Haro home were not just an indication of a crime scene, they pointed to a murder. Forensic teams began to piece together the fragments of evidence left behind, and one thing became clear: the death of Emmanuel Haro wasn't an accident. It wasn't a kidnapping gone wrong. It was a calculated and horrific act. Investigators also discovered that every trace of Emmanuel had been erased. His clothes gone, his photos gone, his presence completely erased from the very home he once lived in. Jake and Rebecca Haro seem to have gone to extreme lengths to cover up their crime. Why would a grieving family destroy all evidence of their child's existence if they were truly innocent? Why would they dispose of everything that once symbolized their son's life? Could it be that the family had more to hide than we initially thought? Why destroy all traces of Emmanuel unless there was something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? What were they trying to hide? And how could they possibly think they would get away with such an act? Then, just when it seemed like there were no new leads, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. TikToker Ahmed Bello, relentless in his search for the truth, uncovered new footage that could change everything. He revealed that Rebecca and Jake Haro were seen near a church in Yukipa at midnight, pushing a stroller. A strange detail, but one that raised even more questions. Why were they at the church in the dead of night? What were they doing there with a black stroller, far from the public eye? Ahmed's tip led police to investigate the property further, and they discovered something unsettling. A hole in the ground, fresh dirt, and the eerie presence of a makeshift cross. Could it be that Emmanuel's body was hidden here, in plain sight, yet undetected until now? Was this the final resting place of a child whose life was stolen before it had even begun? Sheriff's deputies swarmed the site, hoping to uncover answers. Could this be the breakthrough the case desperately needed? Asterisk, and yet, with no body found, the search continues, filled with uncertainty and mounting suspicion. The mystery of Emmanuel Haro's death and the eerie connection to his uncle's death remains unsolved. Two lives lost in the same house. One presumed murder, one surrounded by unanswered questions. The chilling truth continues to unfold as more evidence comes to light. But what really happened behind the closed doors of 508 Ramona Street? Is there more to these deaths than we were told? What secrets are hidden beneath the surface? Stay tuned, because this case is far from over. The answers are out there, but they're buried deep. And the search for the truth, for justice continues.